Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about the OA, which is Netflix's new show that launched today. It's going to be episode 1, season 1 obviously, and it's called Homecoming. We're going to start spoiler free, as we always do with episode 1s, to give you a chance to see if it's something you might be interested in watching without us splurging on all the details. So this was a bit of an enigma, because they surprise announced this
Yeah,
week.
and just to kind of go with that, I want even in this spoiler-free section, I want to keep it really kind of vague because
Yeah, it'll be
I
short
feel like,
because even I feel like there's something in the first 5 minutes which, if we mentioned, would be a spoiler.
well, yeah, like they gave us a trailer earlier in the week, and that was kind of the first we'd even heard of it.
And it felt
And
like a lot of very abstract images that I couldn't really make sense of.
yeah, there was you kind of got the first part of it. Okay, like so, this girl's been found. She's been missing for
Yeah.
7 years, I think it was, and then she was blind, and now she's not. That's pretty much all the trailer gives you,
See, I
and then
forgot that blind
images.
part. I'd have said that was a spoiler, but if it was in the
Nah,
trailer, then fair
that was in the
enough.
trailer.
Because that surprised me when they said it.
No, that was in the trailer.
Right, okay, fair enough. But yeah,
Yeah,
that was the thing I meant in the first 5 minutes.
right. No,
But
that was in it,
okay.
and that's pretty much all we had to go on before this.
Yeah, wasn't a whole lot. Like I say, I kind of just clearly didn't pay as much attention to the trailer as I thought I had, and went in kind of blind. And I recognise Britt Marling, who plays the lead actor, who plays the lead character in Prairie, and she's also co-creator and she's one of the writers on the show. And it's funny
Fair enough.
because I seen her in a movie called not After Earth, sorry, Another Earth. After Earth's a very different film by M Night Shyamalan. Another Earth, which was a movie that came out about 5 years ago, I want to say, and she was in that, and she also I think co-wrote that as well. And it was about like another Earth appeared in the sky, and it was
Was it any good?
I quite liked it, and I think that maybe informs my opinion of this as well because that movie had a very similar pacing and a very similar tone.
Okay.
This very sort of what would you call it? Melancholy wonderment.
I'd almost go with abstract mystery.
Abstract. I don't think there was. I mean, obviously there was some mystery in that movie because there was like this other Earth. Why is it
But yeah, I
here?
haven't seen
Like,
the other movie
what was it? That didn't really have the mystery as such, but everything else felt similar in terms of tone, in terms of
Okay.
that kind of thing, and uh, even the color palette felt very similar. I'd be interested to see actually if the director is involved in this in any way because it felt very similar in that sense as well. But so I thought that was interesting. Clearly, she and whoever she works with has like a style that they use,
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
and I think it's present here. So again, I think we'll avoid talking about plot in the spoiler-free section. We'll keep this brief, five minutes or so, and we'll just talk about kind of how we feel about it going forward. I liked it. However, I do think there's a disclaimer that should be made that I do see a lot of people hating it.
Really? Okay, because I quite liked it as well.
Well, I'm glad because that means we don't have to fight later. But I've already seen some opinions on this online for the first episode, and there've been a mix of positive and negative, and the negatives really like negative. And I think it's because some people don't like this type of pacing. They don't like this type of mystery, and I think certainly when we get to the end of the episode and we see like some hints of what the mystery is, I think some people just outright think it's stupid.
I do think I had one issue with the pacing, one section towards the end, which felt like this should have been the close of this episode.
Okay.
And then it kind of just carried on into the next bit. It was about maybe 15 minutes or so from the end. And I thought that was a little bit weird, but once it kind of got into that next section, I kind of just got over that.
I think it's worth it for the way they did something at the end, but
Yeah,
we'll talk about
yeah.
that in spoilers.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
But yeah, I think it's very well directed. I think there's a lot of great moments. There's a really good moment early on in the episode when she first gets home and it like focuses on her feet, like touching the carpet, and the way
Yeah.
she just kind of she reacts to it and like feels it again for the first time in years. That I thought was handled very well. There's a lot of little things like that peppered throughout. The character work's also very interesting. She's kind of like she's they think she's kind of crazy in that she might have all these memories and these made up things in her head, and we get the sense that maybe that's not true, and there's more to her, and there's like obviously this mystery of where she's been and all that plays into it. And then the other characters, you have all these people who are kind of lost souls, and kind of, Steve, who's the other main character, is kind of an asshole, but you get that he's deep down trying not to be.
Yeah.
But he really is an asshole.
He really is.
He is awful for the first half of this episode, and it does definitely feel like an indie movie drama kind of thing. Like, it definitely has that vibe going for it.
Yeah.
But no, I think if you like this type of story, I think you'll get into this quite a bit. But I do think there's a large portion of people who will watch this first episode and hate every bit of it and want nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I kind of get that it's not for everyone, but like you say, if you like this sort of thing, you'll probably enjoy it because it's certainly well made enough.
Oh yeah, nah, I'm definitely into this. I was intrigued the entire time, and I was caught
And then you
along.
get to that last section where you're like, oh, okay, now you're pulling me in.
I think if you like The Leftovers, maybe you'd probably be into something. This, it's kind
It
of
has a similar feel to that, yeah.
yeah. It's got that kind of melancholy, almost dreamlike kind of feel to it.
Mm.
I would say that would be who I'd recommend it to, and I say that having not seen season 2 of The Leftovers yet, but I would definitely say that's kind of similar. Again, if you've seen Another Earth, which was similar people involved, I think it would also appeal to you. But again, that was a movie that I remember being very divisive at the time. Like people hated it, whereas I really liked it. So,
Well, at least you should probably know what sort of person you are then at this point, and you'll know if this is for you or not.
Yeah, pretty much. And I appreciate that stuff like this exists. Like, I don't think everything can please everyone, and it would be really boring if it did.
Of course not. There's plenty of stuff that we don't like that isn't necessarily bad.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is like stuff that tries to please everyone can end up pleasing no one. Whereas this will really please a sizable section of the audience who will be really into it, but it will piss off everyone else, and that's okay.
Yeah, as long as that audience is enough.
Yeah,
that's fine.
But like I say, at least in this first episode, I really enjoy the mystery. I enjoy the character work. I really like the direction, and I think you said you had one issue with pacing at one point. I didn't have so much an issue with the pacing. I thought it was slow, but it was a deliberate slow.
Well, see, I don't mind slow, and that was fine. It was literally just one very specific moment where I felt like I was going into the end of an episode, and then it kind of kept going.
Okay. But, that's spoiler-free. I think, we can't really talk about plot points here without... So, that's spoiler-free section over. Full spoilers from this point on for episode 1 of the OA. And if I accidentally call it the OA at some point, I apologise, but there's a planet in Green Lantern called Oa, and I'm a fan of that, so...
we just get used to seeing that word and saying it like that. Yeah,
so if I say Oa, it's because I'm familiar with that from another place, and it's hard not to think it when I see it, but the OA. So, full spoilers. So yeah, she comes back after 7 years, she's blind. At the start of the episode, she seems to be trying to commit suicide by jumping into the water. No one knows how she has her sight back. She does seem to know. At first, maybe not, but as the episode goes on, even when her mother asks about it, she just says, "I can't tell you." She knows, but she can't say.
But it sets up the mystery almost immediately, because obviously there's a mystery of her jumping off.
Yeah.
And why she's doing that. But it's then when she wakes up and the first thing she goes is, "Did I flatline?" That really caught my attention.
Yeah, because someone else mentions flatlining later on, because she looks up the video of someone else, because she's talking about this friend she's trying to get back to and who she's looking for.
Homer, I think.
Yeah, Homer. And she finds footage online on YouTube of him coming out of his coma, which I think is I think he went in the coma years ago, but he came out now or recently. Yeah, and it seemed like wherever he was when he was flatlined was where she was, which gives you the idea that she wasn't in a physical place of some kind.
Yeah, and perhaps out of time.
Yeah, perhaps out of time. Yeah.
I don't know. But it does very clear, she says, "Oh, I'm trying to get back to people," all this time. She's trying to get back, and like the idea that she has to flatline to get back to them. And she even says to I think the police detectives, where she says, "We died all the time, like countless times."
Yeah, and obviously the jumping off the bridge into the water actually makes a lot more sense when we see that happened to her before when she was a kid. We see that at the end, but we'll get to that. Because we spend a lot of this episode of her coming back home and her parents trying to like be understanding of her. They establish that she's adopted. Her mother tells her this really great story about the first time she got hurt when she was looking after her, and it was the first time she really felt like that's my daughter, because I felt her pain, kind of thing. And meanwhile, we're introduced to Steve, who we're introduced to. It cuts to him having sex, and that, if I have a complaint about this episode, is that I was shocked. I was shocked when his dad walked in the room and then treated him like he was a teenager, because nothing before that moment told me he was a teenager. Because he doesn't look like a teenager, right? And he's having this really sort of... when I say rough sex, it wasn't rough sex, but it was rough in the sense it was shot like, it was explicit, I guess is what I'd say.
Yeah, it might be the first time I remember seeing tits on Netflix.
I thought it was the first time, but...
They're not?
Nah.
Okay. It doesn't say. It's the first time I remember seeing them on a Netflix show.
Yeah, although I feel a bit creepy afterwards, finding out they're underage.
That's the thing, because in that moment, it doesn't play like they are at all.
It doesn't feel like it at all, especially the way she casually leaves. It's the morning, and then the dad comes in, and I'm like, wait, so did the dad know she was in there? Is he cool with this? This is a bit weird.
Because it kind of seems like he knows.
Yeah, like... I don't know, it's weird. The whole thing doesn't feel like he's a teenager, but then as soon as the dad comes out, it's like, oh, right, okay.
Yeah, and then he's off to school.
Yeah, so that would be my one complaint, is that really took me by surprise. Like, I didn't get from that he was a teenager at all.
See, there was a moment where they're like, oh, I like someone else too, and he says, they're in this group. She says they're in this group, right? And I was like, wow, this really sounds like, they go to another school sort of thing. Yeah, but you wouldn't know them.
Yeah, but even then I was thinking, like, college at least.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. I was like, this seems a bit childish for these people.
Yeah, or, like, because she mentions it's in, like, choir group or whatever. I can't remember the exact phrase she uses, but I was thinking, well, that's still something people do as an adult. That could still be...
Well, yeah, it was just the way they said it sounded childish. And I was like, okay, that was a bit weird coming from them. And then it was like, okay, these are clearly teenagers.
Yeah, rough sex in the morning, and he can't finish. Which, I mean, obviously, given that he like punches the kid after the whole conversation about being gay, was making me instantly think that he was gay, and he, that's why he couldn't finish. That's why he's so aggressive, because he's bottling it up and that kind of thing. And that still might be the case. Although I don't think the rest of the episode, once it got past a certain point, leaned on that as much. I felt like it.
No, but. Maybe it just didn't need to, because it had established it pretty clearly. That obviously when we get to the end of the episode, it's like, you have to accept things, is what she's saying to them. So I feel like that they all have to accept something about themselves, and that'll be it for him. Yeah,
probably. So obviously he encounters her. She's like not allowed to go on the internet because she's a risk, and it's one of the small touches I liked is that her computer, which is there, A, is a heap of junk because it's 7 years old, because that's how long she's been gone, and B, because she was blind, it is a computer made for a blind person.
It took me for a minute at first when it started speaking to her. I was like, why is it doing that? And I was like, of course, she was blind. This is just the same computer. They just kept it.
Yeah, because at one point you see the keyboard and there's like braille on all the keys. And it never occurred to me that when Steve asks where the mouse is, and she's like, no, you don't use a mouse with it. Like, it makes sense. A blind person couldn't use a mouse.
Yeah.
Oh, it almost makes me wonder, why is there even a screen? I guess for other people who are with her,
Yeah.
And that makes sense. But so they end up having this, as he puts it, strangers on a train moment. Although we shouldn't gloss over the fact that she is able to calm down his dog, who is set on her to attack her, and she bites the dog and then like pets him down, and like the dog's
and then afterwards she has clearly been bitten quite a lot in the arm. And there's blood dripping down, and she just doesn't react to it.
Yeah.
Like she does in the moment as she's being bitten, but as soon as she starts calming down the dog, that's it. It's like a switch is flicked.
Yeah. Which and everyone in the room just like stood still, because Steve has been a complete prick up until this point, and he just stands there still. And then he punches the kid in the throat, and you're like, yeah, this guy is a complete dickhead. But then he comes over, and they have the whole strangers on the train conversation, where because he doesn't actually say what he wants her to do quite yet. We just sort of see it happen once it starts happening. But he has her impersonate his stepmom, which he doesn't actually have. Like, his mum and dad are still together, but like as far as the teacher's going to be concerned, who's Phyllis from The Office, might I add.
Yeah, I heard her voice. I was like, oh, okay. And then she turned around.
Yeah. So she dresses up, and I was like, all right, this makes sense, because I wasn't sure if they were implying, because once they revealed that Steve was high school age, I wasn't sure if they were implying that she was also high school age.
I did the exact thing. I was like, hang on, how old is she meant to be?
And she doesn't look it, but I was
but then neither did the others.
But neither did Steve. And then when he was like, oh, you're going to pretend to be my mom, I'm like, wait, she doesn't look that old though. So when she says stepmom, I'm like, okay, right, you thought this through.
You allow it a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, younger, hotter wife, if you will, is what they're saying is going on with his dad, right? Fine. Yeah. But yeah, so she comes in and she essentially flips because the teacher, I'm gonna call her Phyllis for now. She like tries to she wants to expel Steve for this incident about being punched in the throat, and
probably quite rightly as well.
Aye, and Prairie which by the way, Prairie does not like being called that. She wants to be referred to as the OA. That's what she wants to be called now.
Yeah, she keeps asking them not to call her that. Like, she says that's not her name anymore. And
it's funny, because at the start of the episode, when she was saying this, my head's instantly going to, oh, she was at a lab, she was being experimented on, and they were doing some sort of, like, sleep tests and, like, experiments with her and other people. I don't still think that. There's more to it than that now that I've got to the end of the episode, but that's where my mind was.
Yeah, and that could be part of it.
It could be part of it. There could, because even if she wasn't physically somewhere, like even if she's talking about going somewhere else, her body still had to physically be somewhere.
Yeah, because it was missing, even though.
Yeah, because the other kid, Homer, he was in a coma in a bed in a hospital, so he was still physically somewhere.
Yes, definitely.
So, but yeah, so she does this thing with the teacher where she flips it all around, and she basically is like, why don't you try and help him? You're giving up on him, and you're trying to help the kids that clearly don't need it. They've already got their lives kind of in order. They're on the path to doing the right thing and whatever. And Steve's clearly the one who needs the guidance, and you're giving up on him. And she basically almost makes her start crying. And it's kind of this weird insight that she has, this weird people skill. I really enjoyed this stuff, because her like pretending to be a regular. Because it's almost something I don't think about, that like you have to dress like an adult that would, have a stepson.
Yeah.
I don't really think about it, but then when she put her hair back and she walked in with those new clothes, it was like, okay, right, I get what you mean. Like, she does now look more like a mum.
Yeah, she's playing the part.
Yeah. But it's just not something I think, like, a mum could be wearing anything, really, but there is like the small
stereotype.
Yeah, the small town suburban housewife look, I guess, is what she's...
Yeah.
What she's made up in, but in return, what she wants is really bizarre. It's this really kind of... She wants 5 people, potentially including him, who are strong and flexible, to meet her at midnight, and all of them must leave their front doors open.
Also, we should point out she's making little videos at this point, which has like this message in.
Well, she makes like a video diary as she's talking to Homer, but it's right before she realizes she's about to get stuff taken away.
Yeah.
That she makes like a small like actual message, like sort of like almost an advert for what she's doing, and puts it on YouTube.
Do you know what? I almost wish the trailer had just been that YouTube video.
Ah, yeah, I know. How weird would it have been? It's just like, yeah, I need 5 people, and you must leave your door open. Like,
well, that would have hooked you.
Yeah. I have to admit, I was deeply curious. I almost, because most of the people who were going were people with parents, because there was mostly teenagers who end up going, and they leave their doors open. That was like my one problem in just terms of like when their parents notice,
just shut the door.
Yeah, would just notice. Like, see if it was just you must leave your doors unlocked. I could buy that the parents wouldn't notice that, because if you'd already locked it, but then the kid had unlocked it, you wouldn't see it. But
yeah.
But that was just where my head was at with that. But she sneaks out anyway, and she just kind of hoped, even though Steve was caught and his parents wanted to send him away to like military school to like beat him into shape and all the rest of it, and even though this, like, it's almost like this leap of faith thing, which is part of beyond the directorial style, it's kind of why I say it feels like an indie movie. It's one of these things where they all have to have faith in something.
Well, yeah, she speaks to them. It's like, look, you're gonna trust me, but until then, just pretend, and that's kind of it. Like you've got to just go with it.
That's when they all get there, because it's Steve, the other three kids that we've seen like a little bit of, and the teacher who shows up, and she's like the odd one out who makes the fifth.
It also felt like a little bit of a meta commentary. Like, look, we know this is weird. Just look, it'll all pay off. Just trust us, and even if you don't, just go along with it for now.
Do you know what I appreciate about that though? I feel like you get these scenes in all types of like stories and movies where there is like a magical character or something, and they'll be like, no, you just have to like, and they end up having to go along with it, and then they're shocked when it's right. There's actually something really cool about the character who's trying to convince them, saying, look, I get that you think this is stupid right now. Yeah. Pretend it's not, and later on you'll be
real.
Yeah. Like I kind of liked that line. That was good.
Yeah, it was good.
And she's like, now, everyone wants to ask me how I got my sight back, but in order to get to that, the more interesting question is, how did I lose my sight in the first place?
And this is where the pacing threw me off. So they were all getting in this room, and she starts this speech, and the credits start coming up, like, Netflix presents.
Yeah, which I love, by the way. I love that they left it to this point in the episode.
I do as well. But what I really thought was going to happen was she was going to just like start, and this is the story, and it was going to end on that imagery at the end, and then the next episode was going to start with, just from now for like the next chunk of episodes will just be her telling the story.
I thought it might do that. Like I was kind of thinking it might, and I was loving the music that was playing as it was like showing you this, because she opens with "I was born in Russia," which I laughed when Steve went, "What?"
yeah.
But they did establish she was adopted, so this seems.
You can go with it, yeah.
Plausible enough. And, it tells the story of her father and how he was like this rich guy in Russia, and how he like basically made her sit in freezing water to get rid of this nightmare she was having. And
sounds very Russian, really, doesn't it?
In Mother Russia, you I don't know, you joke about taking control of your nightmares or something, I don't know.
Yeah, it got away from you a bit.
It did get away from me. You know what joke I was going for though? In Mother Russia, you pull the cops over, kind of thing. You know that?
Yeah.
One of those jokes. But no, the music was playing. We got all these aerial shots of like the snow-covered Russia, beautiful stuff, and
yeah, it looked gorgeous.
And she says, okay, so every day, like, because obviously all these big rich houses were all out in the middle of nowhere, away from everyone else. This bus comes around and picks them all up. This private bus. So it's all these rich people's kids, important people in the country and all that kind of thing. And it goes off a bridge into the cold water, kind of like what she was trying to recreate with the.
But you know what? I love that you know exactly what's going to happen just before, because of the nosebleed. Like, because obviously the whole thing before was when she was having these nightmares. Every time she had it, she got a nosebleed.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you see the nosebleed, it's like, it was a premonition.
Yeah. And she's into the water, and she says, and she managed to swim out a window. We see her, as a little girl, swim out the window, and she's like trying to get up, and there's this beautiful wide shot actually of the light coming down through the water and hitting her. Very, very, you could almost print that out and put it on the wall.
So surrealist.
Yes, and that's how I would describe this show. I wouldn't recommend this show to anyone who wants just this is like The Wire or like The Bourne Identity, where everything's very trying to be grounded and gritty, and it's not that. It's sometimes art is not real life. It's skewed for beautiful purposes or whatever. And she says a line where and that day all of them died, and you pause and she goes, including me, and. That's when the episode, for some people, and even I sort of like sat back for a little bit and went, wait, what was this? When it cuts to the next thing.
As she said it, I was like, I'm okay with this, because obviously they'd established this whole flatlining thing.
So
it's like, okay, I get it.
This is the first time this, whatever it is, happened.
Yeah, and then it goes off the rails. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean...
Then it jumps in, head first.
Yeah.
Into just the batshit insane... And we get this really weird, wonderful, but weird image. It's like space, but it's like the space is like cubed in glass, and it's like multiple sections.
And it's like she's still in the water, but it's like it's a little pool they're looking into. But the implication is she's still in the ocean, and it's like this entire ocean is just condensed down to this tiny window that they can look into.
Yeah, and given that it's like all the cubes, I was like, is each one of these like cubes of glass like a different like universe almost, like kind of thing? Is that what we're seeing here? Really, really bizarre imagery, but really cool, like really striking. But we have this woman character, this being of some kind, and you know, this could be getting very biblical. This could be an angel of some kind. It could be something more science fiction-y. I'm not sure. I don't really mind which. I have to admit, the image of her though did. It took me a second to be like, all right, I'm adjusting what this show is now, because up until this point it was very everything's
it
mysterious.
Was like, okay, it was kind of mystery, but kind of okay. You kind of just go with it. It wasn't too weird. And then you kind of got to her telling the story, and it got a little bit weirder just because of it was very surreal. Like even when they went into the water, stuff like that, and the imagery over her voice was very juxtaposed. And then you got to this, it was like, okay, this is not what I thought it was.
Yeah, and I think it was, first of all, I appreciate that they wanted to do something ballsy, so they did it. I also appreciate that they did this at the end of the first episode, because I think if this had came like towards the end of the season and everything had been like the rest of the first episode, and then we get this later, it'd be like, oh, this is kind of weird now. But
you'd almost feel cheated, because it would be like, what was the point of everything else? But if you're only going to give us this now.
But this is saying, no, this is what this is. In some capacity, you're going to get more of this. And
yeah, like as much as I said, I thought it was really jarring how it carried on. It was important that it did, because this needed to be in the first episode so that this can be established early.
Yeah. And so that was the big thing at the end of the episode. And she says she'll send her back, to life essentially, but she's going to take her sight because she doesn't want her to see the horrors that are coming. She wouldn't burden her with that. So she actually takes her sight, and we see her wake up like on the beach or the shore, with her dad. Like,
yeah, and it makes me go, what did she do wrong to be punished then to see again? Because that's the implication here, that this was a gift. Like, she doesn't want her to see it. She doesn't want her to suffer.
Yeah, she's been outcasted from whatever exclusive angel club she was
whatever
in.
She's done now to see is punishment, which is very interesting, I think.
Yeah, if it even is. I mean, right now it's just speculation. I don't know. Like, is she here because there's like a reason for it? Is she got a purpose? Is she recruiting 5 people to? Because she seems to be, like, the way she talks to them, it's like she will enlighten them in some way. She will bring them on this journey. So I don't know. But I'm intrigued.
But I want to know more.
Yeah, I'll say that. I am super intrigued about all of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So, no, so that's kind of the big reveal at the end of the episode. And we basically, we come back and we see them all listening to this story, and she sort of makes our battle cry for the rest of the show. It tells us what it's going to be about. So, now I'm into it. I don't think everyone will be. I think it's a show that you have to like this kind of storytelling to enjoy, and I think a lot of people will think it's stupid.
Yeah. And
they won't like that it is all mysterious and is, the characters are kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not realistic in a sense. They're
almost caricatures, but in a weird way that it's not very like obtuse about it, but they're all like one defining element.
It's like, instead of just being a story that's here for entertainment, it's almost more like a
message,
a parable.
Yeah. Parable works.
Yeah, like there's they each represent something. There's a purpose, and it wouldn't surprise me if we get a lot more about the other characters that we, the other 3 that we didn't get to know as much in this one.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like it's going to be like a journey of self-acceptance, where obviously the guy will maybe accept his sexuality. The teacher will accept that she has to overcome and not take the easy route of which students she goes with. Things like that will lead them to accept who they are as a person on a deeper level, and that'll kind of be maybe we'll focus on each of them for an episode.
Maybe, yeah. This was good. I really like this. I think it is not for everyone, but I was into it. I was super intrigued the entire time. It's got that kind of hypnotic feeling about it, where you're just you're entranced.
It's like you're in a trance, yeah. You just kind of, you just can't look away. You just keep going.
And some people hate that with a passion, and that's fine. But I'm glad this exists. I'm looking forward to watching more of it now.
Yeah, and I hope if it can live up to what it has promised here and keep the mystery and not feel disappointing at any point, this will probably be really great by the end.
I'm glad we decided to watch this instead of season 2 of Man in the High Castle.
Oh man, if we'd watched that and then found out about this like 3 weeks later and gone, we wasted our weekend on that instead of this, we'd have been pissed ourselves.
Yeah, so expect reviews of the rest of the episodes over the next few days. We should have this done either late Sunday or maybe squeezing into Monday, if the occasion calls for it. But certainly not any later than that. So thank you very much for watching. Let us know what you thought of the first episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. It helps us out a lot if you do. But yeah, thanks very much for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.